without further ado, we have Charles Fowler from World Values Day. Charles is the coordinator of this amazing event that is taking place this year on October 17th, but I'm going to let him tell you more about that. So, Charles, go ahead and just jump in and share.
Lovely. Okay, thank you so much, Mervan. And thank you particularly for inviting me onto this wonderful summit and introducing me only a few months ago to the tremendous work you're doing at G100. It's absolutely tremendous. I really love it. And it's, of course, so aligned with values. I know we're sort of collaborating, particularly because the summit is quite close to World Values Day, which is next Thursday. But I think, it's such a good fit in every single way. So thank you so much, and good to see and meet you all today. I'm going to talk about values and volunteering and World Values Day. That's basically the title of the talk. And I'm going to really make no excuses in starting off talking about values, because I know you've been talking about values probably for a whole day already, those that you've been there yesterday. And but I really think there's no need to make excuses. I'm going to show my screen. Hopefully everyone can see it, and move on to the subject of values, because however much you hear about values, you can never hear too much, in my view. And it's always so exciting and powerful to hear about values. It has a great effect on me, and I think on everyone else. So I don't really go in very much, and this is me speaking personally rather than World Values Day as a whole. I don't go in very much for academic definitions of values. I mean, there's lots out there, there's lots of debate, and it's all very interesting. But actually, I always remind myself that values are from the heart. They're, all the mental activity is fine, but really that's where they come from. And therefore, I think I always find it very empowering to describe, to talk, way of a description about values rather than try and define them. And I think just these little phrases are ones that resonate with me, and I think with everyone. They're on the World Values Day website, pretty much all of these. Values are things that are important to us, and they're actually the foundation of our lives. And they're deeply held principles. They guide us in our choices and behaviors, and they're the core of who we are. We actually need them to be present in our lives for us to feel, long-term happiness, long-term satisfaction, and long-term fulfillment in our lives. They drive us, they motivate us. They're the reason we do what we do. And as I was saying before, they come from the heart. They're emotionally charged. They're the passion in our hearts. And of course, they guide us. Crucially, they guide us in how we live their lives. So I don't know if anyone's come up with this yet in the summit so far, but I was quoting this in a radio interview actually this morning. Elvis Presley wonderfully came up with this quote: "Values are like fingerprints. Nobody's are the same, but you leave them over everything you do." And that's so true. All our values here are unique to us, but it's really the way that we order our values, prioritize our values that are different, and we practice our values too. And the amazing thing is that the values themselves, in slightly different orders, are really common to us all, and we'll get to that in a minute. Why are values important? Again, you've heard plenty about that already, I expect, but just to summarize it without going into it in too great a detail, alignment with values, practicing our values is so important. Living our lives. The theme of this year's World Values Day is bringing values to life. Values are all about living. They're not about laminating, as one of my colleagues would say. They're not about putting on the on a placard on the wall. They're about living, and the point about them is to live one's life in alignment with them, and that is the foundation of a happy, fulfilled life. That's if we live our life in line with our values, we can be growing, we can be balanced, we can be spiritually, mentally, emotionally healthy, and we have a guide to take us through all the difficult choices in life, in relationships, in our work, and our behavior generally. And they they empower us, they motivate us. And it's the same with society. And the society which is aligned with the values is works together, it collaborates, it has motivation of loyalty, altruism, caring for each other, it's supportive, and overall it tends to be harmonious and productive. And if we're not aligned with our values, well, it's all the opposite, isn't it? Individuals are unhappy rather than happy, they're frustrated rather than growing, they're confused, they make poor decisions and life choices, low levels of motivation, and so on. And on a person-to-person basis in relationships, you know, if we're not aware of our values and guided by them, then we're going to be probably a bit difficult to get along with. We're going to make poor decisions in our relationships. We're going to be, you know, drawn to conflict, blaming, and all the other bad things. And same with the society. So that is why values are important to us. But in the longer term, what does that produce? I think if we live our lives aligned with our values, we get to achieve real emotional well-being, real spiritual well-being, mental well-being, and actually physical well-being, so the research tells us. Because short-term happiness, short-term well-being, you know, that's just a quick fix, isn't it? We satisfy our desires and that wears off and we're back down where we were. Long-term well-being is when we have the inner strength to get through all the difficulties of life, all the pain, all the problems, and to have a life which in the end is based on meaning and purpose and gives us long-term true happiness and well-being, or, you know, eudaimonia, as some of us like to call it. And Aristotle described it pretty well, but, you know, this quote could have been from any number of religious leaders or great thinkers, or from any belief system, really. Living a virtuous life, doing what's worth doing. That's really what summarizes it all, and that's what we're aiming, and that's what values. We need values to be the basis, the driver of that. And just a couple of pictures there before we move on. There's a group of people doing that. So there's a community living, doing something harmoniously, collaboratively, and doing it not just once for, in this case, for World Values Day. This was actually a group from PwC in Holland who support World Values Day every year. And they were assembling bicycles to go to Africa, some needy communities in Africa. So that helps us as a group. Values help us to bring us together as a group and give us meaning and purpose as a group, but also individually. And the little girl on the right, even when nobody's looking, she's going to do the right thing, which is a beautiful thing to think about. So that's values. But what about World Values Day? How did that come about? How does the case of values tie up with World Values Day? Well, the story of World Values Day really starts off with a series of national values surveys that have been going for about 20 years, or almost 20 years. Barrett Values Center does them, and they have been run. These are big surveys of, you know, full slices of demographics in various countries, and it's been done in around, I think, 40 countries, almost 40 countries now. And in 2012, they did one of these assessments in the UK. I should say they've been done in America several times, in Brazil, in, you know, lots of European countries, Asian, African, Australia, and I think New Zealand, North and South America. So they've been done everywhere. And the really remarkable thing about these assessments, just to give away one of the big findings, was that wherever you are, whichever country, they ran this survey, the results were pretty much the same, because they always showed that most people, vast majority of people, 70%, give or take a few, I think was the figure, the top values that people named, they were asked, what are your top personal values? And people came up with these words. This is the US, but this is the US, the same thing in the UK. In the US, it was family, caring, honesty, humor, fun, compassion, responsibility, friendship, respect, accountability, independence. And these are all, wonderful values. They're positive, they're pro-social. They are what we might call, if we're allowed to be judgmental, good values. They're great. Isn't that a great list? And in other countries, they come up with really, really similar lists, and slightly different orders using slightly different words, but they're really pretty much the same values come in there. And so that's the good news. The not so good news is that when the same respondents were asked, no matter what country, but again, this is the US, when they're asked about what are the values, how would you describe the culture of the country you're in, these are the top 10 words they came up with in the case of the US. But it's not just the US. This was pretty much the same sort of list everywhere. Look at that. I mean, it's just absolutely horrifying, isn't it? Corruption, bureaucracy, blame, crime, violence, uncertainty, waste, materialism, conflict, aggression. And all these are just a horror story. So what's going on? And this is when this similar results came out in 2012 for the UK, a couple of years later than this. A lot of us were asking that question, what is going on? On the one hand, you've got this top personal values, these wonderful personal values. And when you ask them about the people they know about their local communities, they're actually all quite good. They all say, well, good values are there too. Everyone has good values in my community. The community itself has good values, although a little bit of negative was creeping in. But asked about the society, it's all a horror story. So obviously, there's what we call a values gap, really. There's a huge gap between the values that people aspire to, because actually the first obvious thing is that people are obviously not practicing those values. Otherwise, the society in which they live in would be absolutely wonderful, wouldn't it, if we were all practicing those values? So clearly there's something about people not practicing their values. And this is the huge gap between the values we aspire to and the values, the way we actually behave. We're not putting those values into action, quite obviously. Now, why is that? The biggest problem, in my view, and I think the view of all the people that got together to form the UK Values Alliance in 2013, because we were so alarmed about these findings, was that the problem is to do with ourselves. First of all, it's, we're not putting those values into action. You can say what you like about society, its structure and everything else, and you might say, well, people are overstating the negativity of the society, they're overstating the grimness of the society they live in. And that's probably true. We're embedded, infused with negativity, which we're getting from, all the news media, the 24-hour news media, the social media, nowadays worse than ever, of course. So we are full of, and all those negativity biases, which the psychologists tell us about. So the problem is we don't put those values into action, and we don't put those values into action because we see such a grim world around us. And we think, there's other research which supports this, we think our own values are fine, but other people are selfish. So it's not just this value, but there's not just this survey rather, but there's lots of surveys that show that. So we give up on our values. Oh, well, it's not worth it. We're going to be taken advantage of. What's the point? We give up on our values and we're demotivated for whatever reason. You may come up with reasons, different reasons, but the fact is, what are we going to do about it? One of the things that we can do is to see whether we can address that, because if it's all based on, or largely based on a misunderstanding about other people and their values, then maybe there's something we can do to change that perception, change the perception that other people, I have good values, but everyone else doesn't. And that was really why we thought about, as I say, forming the UK Values Alliance. And then the UK Values Alliance we became aware that there, you know, about all these other surveys around the world, and we thought, well, let's link up with other organizations around the world and see if we can launch a campaign to try and help close that gap. Try and make people aware of the fact that the world isn't full of people without values, that actually there's lots of people with values and practicing, crucially practicing those values in the world. You're not on your own. There's plenty of other people out there doing it, as you've been seeing for the last day with your summit. And I think all of us see all the time when we actually look around us. It's not just me that's got values. It's not just my friends and neighbors and family. Actually, pretty much the majority of population, as the research shows, have these good values, but aren't necessarily aware of them and aren't necessarily practicing them. So we got together with organizations from a lot of countries, prominent organizations, small organizations, all kinds, aiming to put values into the heart of society everywhere around the world and in, you know, all countries of the world. That was the aim, quite a large aim, really. And the way we wanted to do that was, as I say, just make people much more aware of those values and the importance of values, but also to put them into action, you know, and we wanted to share information, share the news about the fact that people were putting their values into action around the world in many, many different ways. So make people more aware of the wonderful positive potential of values and putting values into practice. And humankind is not, you know, humankind is wonderful. It's even angelic, but it's not it's not as bad as we think. And it fits so well, you know, this theme of the World Values Day and our aspirations in World Values Day fits so well into the theme of this summit, because World Values Day is driven by volunteers, not only the central team coordinating it, and that the team itself is spread all over the world, but everyone that joins in all aspects of World Values Day is volunteer based. I mean, it doesn't mean to say we haven't got commercial organizations joining in, we have, but even there, you know, they're volunteering to be part of this campaign. They don't have to do it. So what we've achieved so far is good. We've got to be a hell of a lot better and bigger and all of that, but we have grown. We have managed to, through the use of social media and networking of all kinds, not just online, but offline too, we have reached hundreds of millions of people, I'm glad to say, since 9 years ago when we started. Certainly over 100 countries. We sort of lost count after that. And a lot of the social media don't give you that sort of detailed feedback that that one or two of them do, like X, like Twitter. So our data is incomplete, but we are making some sort of impact. Now, a lot of that impact is going to be quite shallow. And our effort is our effort is to spread the impact, but also to try and get people more and more engaged, you know, because it's not much point just showing people a billboard on the highway. We need to get them to take action if we can. Sow the seeds first and then grow the tree. But having said that, a lot of people get physically involved, not just on social media. Hundreds of schools and universities, hospitals, care homes, all sorts of charities, NGOs, non-profits, governments, businesses, groups, networks like this take part each year, and they put their values into action. They put their money where their mouth is. And that's really just so heartening. And this year is a special year. It's always a special year every year. The theme is bringing values to life. But just looking back to last year, I just included a few images just to give you an idea of how we're engaging people. And this is just very representative of the hundreds of thousands of people who get involved, I guess, and the thousands who are really, really doing something amazing. I'm just picking up a few here. Individually, you know, you can get involved in all sorts of different ways, just discussing, bringing together members of the family. So the individuals on the left using the card game, Values Jam card game, which has become very much integral to World Values Day. Multinationals at the other end of the scale, This is Volvo. I can't remember, it was a couple of years ago, actually, this nice image that they published of World Values Day for them, which was passing the torch all around the world from Volvo units in China right through to Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. And on the right, community groups, each of them very typical of what happens on World Values Day. And I'll be a little bit brief on how we do it, but I'd just like to give a little bit of feeling. If you don't know World Values Day, we don't just go out there and try and shout loudly and get people to capture attention on social media. We provide, and we've accumulated over the years, a lot of resources which are all free. It's all free resources and events. We do a values challenge every year. We run, you can download a workshop and run it in your organization, community group, or special editions for schools and community groups. And it's a 1 hour, very intensive, very exhilarating workshop. I've done it a number of times myself. We get wonderful feedback. There's an all-day series of events which you can attend. Please come along, please check out. Just Google World Values Day Values-thon, or just World Values Day, get on the website and you'll see this all-day series of events, about 33, 34 of them this year, called the Values-thon. And another activity for individuals is we ask people just to download a template, write on the template what their most important value is at the moment and how they're going to put that into action. What sort of change, what sort of action they're going to take to bring that value more fully to life, not just on World Values Day, but over the year. And that's what it looks like in practice. Here are all these people last year around the world showing, using social media to broadcast and encourage and inspire other people. We even enroll dogs to do this, and they're of course the most effective ambassadors, really. But lots of real life human beings too, from all over the world, just saying what their value is at that moment, what's most important to them, and how they're going to put it into life. And whatever that value may be, we're talking about people's values, not our values, but people's own most important values. And we want people to really drill down and get involved. We also provide resources for schools, and this year we've got we always update the pack. We've got about 13 activities, all free to use, all ready to use. If you're involved with schools or in any educational capacity, the age range is sort of 5 to 18, or maybe even younger than 5. And these are all easy to do, ready to go. You can do them. They're all tried and tested, excellent feedback. And I won't run through them in detail, it's unnecessary, but I just want to pick out one that actually, they're interesting. They're all a lot of these are multi-generational, intergenerational, and also very much involving local communities in what happens at the school. The school is a hub, community hub. But just one of the new ones this year is sort of interesting. I'd just like to spend a second or two on it. It's Let's Talk. It's by someone who's been developing these games for World Values Day, especially for World Values Day for the last few years. And this year he's developed a wonderful game, and it can be played. It's a card game and board game. It can be played by children with children, children with adults, adults with adults. But one of the most interesting ways that this game is, as it's developed, has been played, is by children and adults connecting with older people with dementia. And it's reminding them of, memories which are still strong and still vibrant, and, making a connection through those memories. I just thought it's absolutely lovely, and it's just a particular favorite of mine. But there's lots more. There's projects for the school. There's things that you can do as children and young people individually. Alan Williams, who's speaking later today, is also one of his things that he's particularly sponsored himself is the Global Poetry Showcase, and the Values Jam, the Art of Values Showcase and Values Jam, which are very much his children. And So there's a lot we provide, but there's also, I mean, basically with World Values Day, people come up largely, it's very organic. People come up with activities that really resonate with them and, you know, suit their local conditions, the local communities, what they're doing. And just, I wanted to give you a few examples of that. In India, in Bengaluru, last year, what they did was some schools got together for what they call the Great Values Olympics. And this was very much intergenerational, it involved parents and children. And they were getting to know each other in a way that, I mean, curiously, they all said, you know, we found out things about our children, and the children said the same about their parents that we'd never really understood. But the language of values, these exercises, which were very values-based, somehow managed to unlock this blockage, whatever it was, between generations. And there's always blockages between generations. In South Africa, again, this is schools. You know, the schools got together there to find creative values-based ways of addressing serious issues, which all those schools had, or the communities around them had, certainly, to do with abuse, bullying, littering, gangsterism, and so on. And, you know, whether it's art, whether it's writing their values, doing a mural with them on the wall of one of the school buildings, whatever they were doing, or coming up with posters, imaginative posters. This was something that went on for 30 days, the 30 days ahead of World Values Day, again, was very empowering and uplifting. And so it is very much worldwide, as you can see, and it's very much based on volunteerism. All of this is driven really by volunteers or people in their schools or workplaces going the extra mile. And I'd call that a form of volunteerism too. And here, a wonderful team of volunteers in Nigeria were put together a vast program. There's going to be another one this year, spread across 6 states in Nigeria and also Ghana as well, next door. And it was all about recycle, rebuild, connect. So it's connected with all sorts of good principles. And they were walking for values, walking for World Values Days. They were dancing, singing, and doing all sorts of activities as well around World Values Day. A lot of children involved, a lot of adults involved, community involvement too. But this wonderful work, like in all these other places, goes on through the year. It's not just once a year, obviously. Why would it be? There's no point in that. We're trying to stimulate something that goes on through the year. And as I say, commercial entities get involved, big businesses, small businesses of all kinds. You can see some of the names there, big names, multinational names, but it's, you know, it's small names too as well. These ones are sort of eye-catching, but there's lots of smaller businesses like in Australia, Inertia Engineering, Sea Care, care homes in Mauritius, and you know, just every kind of industry, every kind of country, every kind of size, but all really motivated to look at their values again, refresh their values on World Values Day. And, you know, just another thing in Poland, they've been doing this wonderful nationwide event. It's different each year. I've no idea what they're going to come up with till we see it sort of on social media, although we do have contact with them in the meantime. But last year it was a whole series of events in different universities across Poland. The previous year it was flash mobs across Poland. I mean, you know, it's really, really exciting and really, really interesting, and all sorts of different ways of bringing attention to our central message, which is be more aware of your values and practice them. And finally, I think this is the last slide. We also try and I also put a timer on. So I'll wrap up with this slide. And we've been trying over the last few years to have a go at influencing our global leaders, not G100 in this case, although that would be great if we could influence them in some way, but I don't think we need to. This is G20, and so a wonderful organization or group was formed 4 years ago in Saudi Arabia when the G20 was being held there. It's grown and prospered over the last few years. We've been very, very much collaborating with them through that time. We provide or introduce a lot of people to help with drafting a communique containing policy recommendations, detailed policy recommendations to the G20. And that's the case this year. Last year was in India, but this year it will be in Brazil. And I've actually drafted a chapter myself, which will go into that communique. And so we're not just trying we are bottom up really, but we're trying top down as well. Let's see how that works. But it's encouraging so far. We've got a degree of recognition. We've got the G20 asking us, talk to them about their values and give them a paper about the values, which we did a couple of years ago. So that's really it. I've run out of time. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the summit, and please take part in World Values Day, which is next Thursday. I'm allowed a plug, aren't I, Milan? Next Thursday, World Values Day. Don't miss it. Join in, and it would be lovely to see you there as well as here. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Charles Fowler. That was such an informative talk on World Values Day. I definitely got a lot of information about values, and that being the cornerstone of our society, of us as individuals. I know that some of my values that I aspire to is authenticity, collaboration, innovation, positivity, and spirituality. And I would urge everyone to go onto the website, World Values Day. It's a week away. And I can definitely see that I'll be contacting you. I'm now thank you very much for your guidance on that.